Thank you so much for tuning in to Mom Jeans, trying to fit into motherhood. Welcome back to another episode of Mom Jeans. It is the new year, 2025. Hopefully everyone had a great Christmas break and a happy new year. And so today, 'tis the season, I guess. We're going to talk about our New Year's resolutions. And but yeah, so glad to be back. Glad to have taken a break for sure. That was really nice. And here we are. So Lisa, so we should probably introduce ourselves, right?
Sure. Let's do
it. I'm Danielle. I am a boy mom, a stay-at-home mom, and a military spouse for just a couple more months. And then we're going to be out. So that's exciting.
It's crazy.
Yeah, I know.
I remember talking to you about that in the beginning and you talking about it being like a year out. And I was like, that's so far away. And now it's like, wow, it's here. Side note. Okay, wait, first. I am Lisa. I am a girl mom of 2 girls. I was looking at our calendar and our first podcast episode is coming up in 2 weeks.
Wow.
So we're going to be at our
one-year
anniversary. I'm like, that is so cool.
That is awesome. We made it.
We made it. We have definitely been through a lot. We started with 5 of us and we're down to 2.
Yeah.
Then
but that's 2. Okay. Life happens.
It is okay.
And
it does.
Yeah. But
busy moms that want to prioritize, different things. And luckily for me, you still want to keep going because this is great therapy for me. So I appreciate you very much, Danielle.
Thank you. I meant to text you the other day. I was going to tell you, I was like, should we change our podcast name to We Need Therapy?
Yeah.
We do talk about our problems a lot.
We do. We do. But it's nice. I feel like I would like listening to us only for the sense of like feeling like I'm not alone in things. And I think that was your intention when you came up with the idea for the podcast, which is really cool.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, thank you for staying. I appreciate it.
Yes, you too. You too. Yeah. Cool. So I'll jump into a couple of my resolutions. So I'm not going to say these ones are resolutions because they're just like the intention is for the first month, but it kind of ties into my other stuff. So usually I do dry January and then I also do no added sugar January. And dry January to me seems like it's like almost cheating because I don't drink that much anyways anymore. Like I just don't enjoy it. And it's like, I can't afford to wake up hungover when I have 2 kids. Aubrey is walking up a storm right now and it's adorable, but it's, more to keep track of. So yeah. And then the no added sugar. So I say no added sugar because I definitely do peanut butter, but I do the no sugar peanut butter. And like, I always am like caveat, like, oh, I can have this. But really what it is like, I can get really out of control with sweets, like, chocolate bars and ice cream and stuff like that. So I try to rein that in, but it ties into, I decided after having been in Michigan with my in-laws for a while, where I am all the time telling them, my in-laws, that they cannot give Hannah all of these sugary foods and all these foods. But then I sit there and I'm like housing peanut M&Ms and I'm housing cookies and I'm like drinking eggnog and all this stuff I won't let her do. So I really want to work on not living by do as I say, not as I do. I want to set an example and show them, and gosh, it is so hard. It is so, so hard. In our next episode, we're going to talk about grandparents and, having grandparents close by and grandparents far. And we'll probably get into that more. But, like my mother-in-law likes to say to me all the time, well, we fed you guys all those foods and you're totally fine. And I'm having a really hard time with it. So I like really want to set a good example. And it's hard too, like, even when they're not around, like I want to still set that example. Like, even though you're not around, I still live by a good way of life, but it is so hard. And my My other one is staying away from my phone, which I am struggling with so much. I was like, okay, I'm going to start this on New Year's Day. And then New Year's Day came and I was like, all right, I'm going to start it when I get back home because we're still on vacation. And then I was great for the first 3 hours of the day. I kept my phone away from me. It was awesome. I'm failing. And I don't I listened to a podcast today about having phones for kids in high school and ideas. I guess I don't know if you've heard of this. There's a pouch that you can put your phone in, and then the parents or teachers can see if the seal is broken on the pouch, and then they can get reprimanded for opening their pouch with their phone in it. I don't know. I kind of was in and out of listening to it. But I was like, oh, maybe I need that.
Yeah. That is interesting because, cell phones are so hard, especially when I taught high school. It's they're always on it. And to keep them off of it was hard because there's no consequences anymore, to have your cell phone and to take them away. And if it gets damaged in my care, then I'm liable. It's it's crazy.
That's what they were saying on the podcast I was talking to or listening to, and they were like, okay, so you tell them they can't have their phones in the class. So then in between periods and lunch, they're on their phones the entire time, which they're missing out on the social interactions that they really should be focusing on. That's a lot of what school was for us, right? So interesting. But I always come up with excuses of I was like, all right, maybe what I should do is I should just turn my phone off while it's at home. And then I'm like, well, what if this crazy emergency happens and it takes forever for my phone to turn on and I can't call 911 because I don't have a house phone anymore? What am I going to do?
Yeah.
It's what are the chances, right?
Yeah, I know. I don't know if you can lock your apps. I think there's ways to lock certain things. I'm pretty sure.
Really?
You can set timers. And so
I have the timers.
Yeah, I didn't know.
Yeah, but then you can override those.
Yeah. Maybe just put a parent lock. Have Brandon do a parent lock on your phone.
I know. Well, it's
can't get
crazy because it's now because I don't really do social media that much, I find stupid other things to do. I do Duolingo. Yeah. I've been learning Spanish for 5 years because I'm that's my social media.
Yeah. I did that for a while when I was breastfeeding, in the middle of the night, doing Duolingo for a while. And then it I fell off again. But yeah.
That's the bad part. Hannah's like, can you play that game? The do one, the one, and she tries to make the noise when you do the thing, right? And I'm like, oh, that's so sad that you know what this is. And I'm then in my brain, I'm like, okay, so she's seeing me on my phone, which is not good. But maybe this is good. She's learning Spanish. No, get off your phone. I saw a really sad Instagram the other day of I'll have to see if I can find it again, and you may have seen it, but it was where they did a side-by-side comparison on Instagram, and one where the parent was on their phone and the other where the parent wasn't on their phone in each of these situations. And I was like, oh, that's so sad. You can even see it in the kids demeanor and their body language. It was so sad. I was like, I know. Okay.
Was it that man? I forget his name. I follow him and I'm like, that's so sad. And then my husband was like, well, he's making a video doing this.
Yeah. So, I know. I thought the same thing.
But I get the point. But also it's I don't know. It's those Instagram influencers is this is how we live device free. And I'm like, but you're not.
Literally your job is to be on the devices.
Right. So that's wild. I will say my resolution too, or what I'm trying to do is stay off my phone more too. And I did delete Facebook and Instagram off of my phone.
Nice.
So I haven't been on Instagram since. I will say I have snuck back onto Facebook, not the app, but through my phone, just to sometimes I'm checking events here or marketplace but then I get caught up scrolling and I'm like, oh, this is bad. But lately it's been YouTube now because that's on my phone.
Really?
And I never look at YouTube and I'm scrolling through shorts and I'm like, oh, here I am doing it again. But I will say I've stayed off Instagram.
Good.
Facebook for the most part until just a few days ago. And then so I'm trying to do that. So I do notice I put my phone down a lot more.
Good.
And then I guess just being more with that, being more intentional and just being more aware, I guess. I don't know. I feel like I use my phone to like zone out, and I want to have like more, like better conversations. I don't know if that makes sense, like with people instead of
Yeah.
that very just small talk. How are you? Cool. Like, I don't know. Like, be a better person, I guess, if that makes sense. But I'm like that with it. I'm just kind of a quiet person to begin with. And I feel like I do it to my parents, to my family, my friends, my siblings. It's just like very surface level. Like I don't feel like I'm having like deep connection, if that makes sense. And I feel like that's my
Totally.
own fault because I feel like ask questions. I don't know. I don't know. I'm like a
I think
listener. I like
it's
to listen and then take it all in. I don't know. Is that weird?
no. I think it's very interesting because it's like the girls group that I hang out with here, I would consider most of them introverts, and then Michelle and I are the extroverts of the group, I would say. The big extroverts and could talk to anybody and, whatever. And it's interesting because we went back to Michigan and I was talking to one of Brandon's friends, and his wife is amazing. Like she could talk to you for hours, and it's weird being around somebody who's like-minded because we can't get a word in because we talk so much. And it's like,
Yeah.
it's funny because I'm like, wow, this is what I do to other people. They have to be so like, geez, let me say a word, right? Like, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, like that's just, I think I told you the one time I was talking to that girls group and they were like, Lisa, we have to tell you, like, small talk is the worst. Like, I loathe small talk. And I was like, oh my gosh, I love small talk. Like, I love small talk to get people rolling, right? Like,
Yeah.
did you see it's going to snow tomorrow? And they're like, I loathe that. Like, I don't care about the weather. Don't talk to me
Yeah.
about the weather. They're like, but if you're talking to me on a deep level, like, hey, how are your dogs? How are your cats? How are your siblings? Whatever. It's different. Like it's easier to get into that. And I love deep conversation. Like
Yeah.
in theory, I would talk like this every single day to everybody. Like I want to know everything about everybody. And like my father-in-law is a very personable person, and he was like, yeah, like, how do you do that? I'm like, you do that. He's like, no, like I get to a point where like I don't know what to say to people anymore. I was like, yeah, I don't hit that point usually. Like unless I can really read the vibes, like people are like,
Yeah.
move on,
Yeah.
you're annoying.
Right.
But
Yeah. I don't know. For example, like Michaela, my sister-in-law, who's, she was on the show for a bit, but um she'll like ask questions like, how are you feeling? And it's like something I said 2 weeks ago, or like, how's this going? And I'm like, I need to be better at that, like reaching out and like, how are you? Like, with
mhm.
situations, I don't know. So I feel
Do you
like
know,
it's
I was just
one-sided.
thinking about that. Scheduling texts. That's a hard word to get out. Texts is a really good idea to do that. Like if you were thinking about it, like, okay, we're talking about it right now, and I schedule a text for 2 weeks from now, you can do that, which is so cool
Oh,
to me. And then
that's
you
awesome.
can, yeah, I think that's a very good way. But I am a calendar person. So like when Michelle was pregnant, I just pointed to her house as if people know that
Over
that's her
there.
house. Yeah, over there. When she was pregnant, like I would put her appointments in my calendar so that I could check in with her that day. And she's like, how do you remember all this? I'm like, because I use my calendar. Like Brandon hates my calendar because it's like constantly like things like that. Like,
Yeah.
oh, this person's doing this today. This person's doing that today. Yeah.
Oh, that's nice. I can
It's
barely keep up
hard
with
though.
myself.
What's
But
that?
I can barely keep up with myself.
Oh,
But
I
that's a
know.
really good
Same.
idea, though, for sure. Because I just want people to know that I care about them, and I do. But I think, and again, I've said I'm ADHD, that I'm not diagnosed. So please don't hold that against me. But I have heard people like they can literally just cut off, like, forget about you in like the next day.
Yeah.
Not saying I forget about people. It's just like,
Oh no.
maybe it's just where I'm so caught up in like moving and stuff, but I need to be better at like calling people and reaching out and like, how are you? And not saying I don't do that, but it's sometimes I'll look at my phone and I'll see a text and I'll not text back for like a couple days, and I'm like, I just need to text, but I procrastinate. So
I think it's
I don't know.
hard to, like, we talk about, in our group. Like there's seven of us, and I have taken on the role of being our planner and being our, okay, what's next? Okay, when are we getting together next? Okay. And I noticed there was a time period where I stopped doing it, and we hardly talked. And I was like a little frustrated with it. And then I started to realize like, that's just kind of how people are. Like when you are the person who is always the planner, then everybody kind of expects it. Right. And it's like, I don't take it offensively now, because I came to that realization that like, hey, cool, I have my role in that group. And I like being able to do that,
kind of the leader. Like,
yeah, but it's not second nature to a lot of people to get into that role. Right. And I do think that is okay to appreciate who you are for who you are, but it is a cool goal if you want to start changing that and doing it a different way.
Yeah. Just being more intentional, more focused. Like I said, I feel like when I zoned out on my phone, I just felt like a really bad brain fog and all the things. And then like took a while after postpartum to even get out of that brain fog. And so I just kind of want to be more focused, get more done, because I procrastinate so bad. And I'm definitely doing it right now, because it's like when something big's coming up, I'm avoid. So,
I've read so much about like how to stop procrastinating, because that was my MO in high school, in college. Like I waited till the last minute, and then you feel the pressure, you're adding anxiety to yourself, and you're like, why do I do this? Right. And I like read somewhere like, make a list. So I'm a list person, and it's like, do the hardest, worst thing first, because then everything else seems easy. Well, I hate the dishes so much. And today I took down our Christmas tree. I reorganized like all of the toys. I vacuumed everything. I swept. I did all this stuff. And then at the end of it, the dishes were still there. And I was like, as excited as I was that I did everything else, I should have done the dishes first to feel like I did something,
Right. But, yeah. I totally get that for sure. Yeah, my Christmas stuff went down like a couple days after Christmas.
Nice.
Before New Year's. And that never usually happens, but I did put my stuff up a little early. And then Ryan was like, and he's like, oh, no more Christmas spirit. I was like, it's just clutter. There's so much toys. There's just stuff everywhere. And we got to like think about moving. I can't do that with like just Christmas stuff everywhere. So I cleaned it up, and so.
It feels amazing to have it down, because you're so right. Like it was one thing when we didn't have kids, and there was just the Christmas tree, and it was beautiful. And then it was like, oh my gosh, there's toys everywhere. There's clutter. Like I looked at Brandon last night, and I am usually not the person that does this, but I was like, I can't stand it anymore. I can't stand this house. Like I had work to do in the afternoon, and I didn't do any of it because I was like, I have to get organized. My brain cannot function like this anymore. That's so overwhelming.
It like there's a lot of times I'm like, I need to do this, or I want to sit down and read, or I need to like focus on something, but I can't because my house is messy. So I need to do that first before I can focus on anything else. And then usually I clean, and then I'm tired, and I'm like, I don't want to do that anymore.
I was laughing because how Goodreads has you set a goal of like how many books you're going to read in the year. Last year, I think I set the goal of, I think it was like one a month. I was like, I'm going to be so busy and like having kids, and like I think I read 32 books, and I was like, okay, so this year I need to set the intention of like reverse. Like I need to set the goal of 12 and read like 2, because I'm the same way. Like I don't want to do anything when I'm reading a good book. Like I don't want to do any of the stuff I need to be doing. And that's like always. So that's hard.
I feel that. I know. I need to be on Goodreads, because I don't even know how many books I read last year, but it's more than I normally do. No, people keep telling me to do it, and I just,
you should.
It's another thing I haven't done.
It's really nice because like I read everything on the Kindle, and my Kindle's synced up with my Goodreads. So as soon as I'm done, it like marks it as read, and then I can look back if I've read things and don't read them again, stuff like that.
That's awesome.
Good. I like it. I like it a lot, but it's fun too, because you can see what your friends are reading, and if they rate it highly, then I'm like, all right, add it to my list, or what have you. So
I need to do that.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. So taking a step back, speaking of Michaela, I remember one day telling her like, oh man, I'm like really bad about my phone. I want to be better. Like wanting her to say to me, oh, you're not that bad. And she's like, yeah, you are pretty bad at that. And I was like, I was so offended. I was like, so are you? She's like, yeah, I am. I'm like, she's right though. And like, how sad is that to be with a group of friends and they notice that, like, why am I not sitting there being with my group of friends instead of like, oh, I need to check the baby monitor to make sure the babies are down. And then, oh, somebody texted me, I'll just respond really quickly, when it's like, you know, I actually admire the people who take a while to respond because it means they've got better priorities, right? And I aspire to get there. It's just like I said, I always find a reason, like, oh, I need to look up a recipe. I need to grab my phone. Oh, like you said, oh, I need to check Facebook and see when that event is, or what's on Marketplace that I can buy or sell. You know, it's like, that's not necessary. We lived without that, you know?
Right. I know. It's wild. And then when I do go back on Facebook, I'm like, oh, this person's pregnant. I missed that. And I'm like, but why does it really matter? I never talk to them. So it's like, it's just like random stuff. And I'm sure if it's juicy enough, or if I need to know, my sister will call and tell me. So
will she? That's nice.
So
I kind of will tell you, like, I love that my girls are going to have sisters, or like our be sisters, to have that relationship. Yeah. I'm very excited for that. Like I was listening to a podcast today about social media and anxiety and stuff like that. And they say girls take the hit way worse than boys do on that stuff. Mm-hmm. And I was like, that makes me really sad. But it was cool to hear they're like putting a ton of legislation in to try and get kids off their phones. And have you heard of can't remember what it's called. Pledge after 5 or 5th or something like that. It's like pledging. You pledge on this website to not give your kids a cell phone until after 5th grade. And then if 10 other people from your same school or same area end up on that pledge, then they'll email all of you each other's email addresses to give you support. Because they were like, you know, how you remember being a kid, like when they would be like, all right, you know, Susie has a phone and I don't have a phone. You're the worst parents ever. And they're like, the goal is to find like-minded parents and like-minded kids. I was like, that's a really cool idea. Like, I really like that, but it's going to be hard to do.
I know. Yeah, for sure. I'm like nervous for that battle. Like, we'll figure it out when we get there. I don't know.
Right. That's kind of where the whole thing, well, it was more of the food thing, but it was more of the, like, I don't want my kids to see me in front of my phone all the time. And then that's all they want to do is be on their phones, like, that they don't have, but then get mad at me.
I know. So we'll do better. I mean, at least that we're trying. That's, I think, the main thing. Like, we're trying.
I just don't know what, like, I literally don't know what to do about my phone. Like, I cannot figure out, like, can I have like a locker that I lock it up in my house, and then like you can only get into it if you like have a certain heart rate because there was an emergency?
Yeah, I don't know.
Should I invent that?
Maybe. Yeah. Or I don't know. I feel like start deleting some of your apps that you use, maybe. And because I will say, I was texting you when I deleted Facebook and Instagram. I'm like, I'm literally swiping. I was just like sitting and just swiping and like, and then I'll even put in the search bar and hit F for like Facebook. And I'm like, that's how addicted I am. So I finally just like deleted it off there. Ryan says you're not truly off until you like disable it. But I don't feel like I'm there yet. Maybe I should. Like,
I've talked about doing it too.
Yeah.
And then I think of like, okay, well, if I ever do end up with my photography website that I want to do, like, I want to be able to advertise that out to the people that I know so that they can tell people, you know, like, you always come up with reasons.
Right.
Why. And it stinks.
But maybe if you do your photography like if it's like that social media only and you don't follow anybody, any of your
Mm-hmm.
friends and or anything, maybe you're less likely to scroll, but it gets you the algorithm. Like I see people like I don't even know and I'm just watching the videos because they're catered to like what I like to watch, I guess.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, like I
so
said, it's interesting following, like being on the Mom Jeans Instagram and seeing all of the sites or the accounts that you and Leah followed.
yeah.
And I'm like, I would never follow those people, but now they're in my personal algorithm because I'm, signing in on my phone. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, that's, you see how people get the information that they get
Mm-hmm.
when you get those algorithms, that because you slowed down on one post or you stopped on one post. It's
Yeah.
sad. It's
Yeah.
scary. It's really scary.
Yep. There's it was a documentary or it was on, I don't remember what it was called, but it was on Netflix and it was talking about like the algorithm like on social media and how it works and how it gets people addicted and like all the things that go into it. It's really scary. I can't remember what it was called. It was a couple years ago. I don't know if you remember it.
Mm-mm. They
I
were
have to look it
talking
up.
about the how a lot of legislation is trying to go, like trying to get kids off their phones and off of social media and all that kind of stuff. And they were like, somebody like wrote into this podcast and they're like, well, if you want that, you need to move to Utah because Utah has done a really great job at that. And hopefully other states will follow. But Meta, Facebook, Instagram, Meta parent company is like so pushing hard and they have so much money to be able to swing these things to not allow that to happen. And it's like, man, isn't that crazy that we
Yeah.
know that this is causing depression and anxiety and we're like, yeah, just keep serving it to them on a platter. Like, I'd
Right.
be interested to know Mark Zuckerberg's kids. Like, are they allowed to do all of this stuff? Like, I would
Probably
love
not.
to know that. Yep. Right?
I feel like I heard something. I don't know who it was. If it was the person on Amazon or I don't know. Well, one, a lot of these like people send their kids to Montessori schools and not public school. And
Mm-hmm.
then, yeah, I don't know if they're letting them have devices or not, but
I
I
know,
can't.
like, I said it to Brandon, like, our Montessori school does not do any devices. And then when they get up to middle school, it's like, well, all their homework's on the tablet. All their home, like not the Montessori
Mhm.
school, but when you go to the next level of whatever school you end up in, it's like, oh, I'm not okay with that. That really bothers me. But
Yeah,
I don't know how to fight that fight.
no,
Move
don't
to
think
the
we're gonna figure it out
woods.
either. If we do, we're
No.
gonna be geniuses.
I really
make a lot
hope
of money.
I know Michelle says this a lot. Like, I really hope things change a lot by the time our kids get to that level.
Yeah, but I don't think it like with the way AI is advancing. Like, I don't think we're going the direction we don't want to go. Like
Yeah.
even Ryan was telling me about an article he read and something about how AI basically can do so many people's jobs now. Like he's in the project management world, he's going to be, but like they can write programs to like do all these things. And so you could be one person like running a company because AI can think 24/7 and doesn't have like as many flaws or whatever as like human
Yeah.
error. And so basically, I feel like it's just going to take people's jobs because
I think it was Mark Cuban that said recently, like, you need to get into the service industry and know how to handle people because that's going to be all that's left.
yeah,
For, AI is going to take everything else. And I was like, well, that's reassuring.
yeah. I know it'll be
Great.
really wild to see like when we're 80 or 70 and
80.
like
I'm thinking like 45. It's coming
the
fast.
stress level. Well, no, I
Oh.
meant like as we're like old and we're like how things have progressed.
Yeah.
From like because we saw kind of the internet and the cell phones and just starting and to where it's like to where it's going. I'm talking with my hands, those who are just listening. So.
Fair.
But yeah. So I don't know. All right, but like,
are you good at sticking to your New Year's resolutions usually?
I don't know. I try not to like really make any because I don't want to fail.
You don't want to fail on them.
Yeah, no, for the most part, I guess I do want to start like getting back into exercising more. I mean, and I do. I exercise about 3 times a week when I go to my classes, but I want to start like
That's awesome.
independently. Like, need to get back into it, but especially because when I'm moving, it's just I'm gonna be at my parents' house, so I'm afraid I'm just gonna get out of like a routine. So I just want to be better, like organized, and then just like a better routine and having like better habits. I know that it's very generic, but
no, I like it.
Yeah.
I do not set that goal because
yeah,
I do not work out. I have been so bad about that. I even moved my stationary bike into the garage today, and I have not been on it in probably 18 months, maybe even longer, probably 2 years. It's been sitting in our house for 2 years, and that has not been touched.
Yeah, it's hard.
I hate that. It's hard.
Yeah. So,
anyway,
I don't know.
People out there.
Yeah, hopefully. What resolutions have you made? I don't know. I just want to have better like habits, like not looking at my phone as much, exercising at least 3 to 4 times a week at least, and then I don't know, just being better, like setting an example, like for my son, like you were saying for your kids, which I think it's okay to eat that stuff in like moderation. You know, you were talking about eating, and also if like you deprive your kids so much, I've heard that they'll go the opposite and have like eating disorders because they weren't allowed to have that. So it's not like I don't like, because I know you said you don't eat out very much. I feel like we eat out quite a bit. And when we do eat out, I'll like give him food I wouldn't normally cook at home, obviously, but like ramen noodles when we go to the ramen place, because I love ramen.
I love ramen.
Yeah. So, and he loves it too. And I'm like, this is probably terrible for him. I'm not going to think about what's in it.
No.
So
it's not an everyday thing, you know. It's like, and I get that. I mean, I think it's just like, it was hard to get Hannah back to eating decent food when all she had was junk, and then she's like, I don't want that. I want this. And she the other day said something to me. I was like, Han, you can't do this. And she's like, but you're doing that. And I was like, you're right. You're so observant. So
right.
Yeah.
So all right. We'll stick to it. We're gonna work really hard. We'll figure it out.
Totally. We're totally
we sound so sure. Yeah. Don't come to us advice of how to keep your New Year's resolution. Are you failing?
I would love support out there. If you guys have any tips or tricks, the phone is the number one priority for me. Is like, I realized how addicted I was like 2 days ago when I was like, I can't even put it down. Like so bad. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to stop dwelling on this. I'm over it.
I will say the last thing, I got a new watch. I got a Garmin watch. So I don't have my Apple Watch anymore.
Nice.
So I can't text on this. I can like talk to text and I can call, but that's about it. So I don't.
That's nice. That's a good idea.
Pull things up like I normally do on the iWatch. But this watch lasts so much longer, like 10 days.
Oh, it's the
days.
Best.
Yeah.
I know. I had a Garmin watch before my Apple Watch, and it was awesome how long it kept its charge.
Yeah. I will say though, it tells me like, oh, you had an easy day today. You should. I'm like, thanks.
I turned the move things off on my watch when I was pregnant, because I would like get so depressed about it, and I was like, I'm not turning it back on. It's too depressing. Time to get up and move. Get out of here. Leave me alone.
You got 5 rest points for sitting on the couch.
Yep.
But I did have a stressful moment. I lost -9 points. I'm like, that's a lot in like 10 minutes. I was just trying to make muffins before I had people come over for a play date. So. Yeah, my butternut squash muffins.
Ooh.
So they were yummy.
Yum. I love it.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. We'll see you all next week.
Yes. Bye.
Bye.
And that wraps up another episode of Mom Jeans, trying to fit into motherhood. Thank you again so much for listening to us. And if you enjoyed this podcast, please consider giving us 5 stars so other mothers out there like you can find us and listen. If you would like, you could follow us on any of our socials at Mom Jeans the Podcast. If you have questions, would like to send us your birth story, or give us suggestions or things that you would like to hear, please email us at hello@momjeansthepodcast.com. See you next week.